going on, guys? We are bringing in Jordan Hall. He covers the Philadelphia Flyers for NBC Sports Philadelphia. Jordan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, guys. Thanks for having me.
Good. And the season's fast approaching and a lot's happening. Obviously, the Flyers had an off day today, but they did announce some cuts. And I was surprising one off the bat was Morgan Frost, who was sent down to Lehigh Valley with the Phantoms. And that was obviously a little surprising to me and everybody else in the fan base. How does that react, or how does that news react to the fan base, and how does that go going into the season at the center position starting 2021?
Yeah, I think the fan base was surprised. I was even a little surprised. I think fans are still very excited about Morgan Frost. He's one of their top prospects. He's a center. He makes plays. So naturally, fans kind of gravitate towards those players. And unfortunately, he didn't really win the job. He had to earn the spot to fill in for Kevin Hayes. Kevin Hayes is out 6 to 8 weeks with after undergoing abdominal surgery. So Frost was the clear-cut favorite to win the job. He was put in position to win it, and he just didn't do enough. He's a playmaker. He's a guy that's asked to produce offense, put up points, and he went scoreless through 3 preseason games. And the Flyers really put him in position to show his strengths. They had him on power plays every single game. He was centering Joel Farabee and James Van Riemsdyk all of camp and for 2 preseason games. His 3rd preseason game, he was centering Oscar Lindblom and Cam Atkinson, and still he only had 2 shots and no points. So the Flyers wanted to see more. They didn't get enough from him, and they're going to adjust now. I think the fan base is a little frustrated, a little upset because they wanted to see this kid. I wanted to see him too. I don't think you need to hit the panic button and wonder about Morgan Frost's future. I think he still can be a player at the NHL level. He's still only 22. He's gone along. So it's not the end of the world, but definitely surprised, and I think fans were eager to see him. Now he needs to work his way back here, and the biggest thing will be when can he get back here?
Yeah, and then obviously, like Connor said, and like you said, big surprising news. But even moving into the season now, and really one of the biggest things is on a lot of Flyers fans' minds, I believe, would be what's the biggest change that you think this team or adjustment that they really have to make, to show what they looked like, 2020 pre-COVID, because I believe they can still be that team. But what, in your opinion, just watching this team, that they have to change to be successful like that again?
Yeah, well, they really need to cut down on their goals against. Last season, they allowed more goals than any other team in hockey, and that's staggering. So they need to be tougher to play against. And one of the biggest things will be how quickly can they gel and form chemistry, really form a new identity. They have 7 new faces on this roster. Chuck Fletcher did his part. He was active in the offseason. He was true to his word. He knew the team needed changes. But how quickly can the changes come together and really develop a new identity to this team? But the biggest thing is being tougher to play against and cutting down their goals against. I think okay goal scoring team. I don't really worry about them scoring goals. They didn't really have a huge problem scoring goals last year. Maybe they were a little inconsistent at times scoring goals, but the biggest thing was they were just not playing Alain Vigneault's system. They were far too easy to play against, and it had a trickle-down effect on its goalies. You can't allow the most goals in hockey. You can't have the 30th ranked penalty kill and expect to stay afloat and expect to be a contender. So that will be the biggest emphasis. Can they be tougher to play against? Will the new personnel make them tougher to play against? When the Alain Vigneault system's going well, it's got 4 lines all going at once because it's such an effort-based system. It's all about forecheck-oriented, sustaining possession. Like, that takes immense effort. And in order to do that, you need 4 lines allocating minutes and all kind of playing the same style. If it's 2 lines going and 2 lines not, it's just not going to work. So they're going to have to see if they're a deep enough team to play his style. And the start of the season will be crucial because it's coming off a real frustrating season where fans are frustrated. They want to see the team start fast. And if you don't start fast and you suddenly have some question marks through the opening months of the season, pressure builds, and then people are going to be thinking long and hard about if this team is going to rebound or not.
Yeah, 3 big additions in the offseason. They brought in Ryan Ellis from Nashville. They brought in Rasmus Ristolainen from Buffalo. and they brought in Keith Yandel from free agency as well. What do you think about those three additions on the back end? Because obviously they really struggled defensively last year. What kind of roles are those three players going to have, and what kind of upside do you think they could have with the new defensive core they brought in?
Yeah, the three new faces on defense were one of my biggest takeaways from the preseason. I thought I saw a number of good things from all three, and that was the biggest objective of the Flyers all season, was revamping their blue line because they allowed far too many goals, and they just didn't have enough experience back there. They never replaced Matt Niskanen, and they felt the effects of that. They get a guy in Ryan Ellis who really reminds me of Matt Niskanen. Plays in all situations. He's been there, done that. He's really going to help Ivan Provorov, and he really should be a steadying presence back there. In watching him in the preseason, you can just tell he's in the right spot all the time. You can see his experience on the ice with how he conducts himself, with where he is in certain situations. So he'll be the biggest addition by far, I think, this offseason up front. Not even considering up front and on the back end. I think he's their biggest addition of the offseason. Rasmus Ristolainen, I think, is going to bring an element of physicality, an element of nastiness, stand up for teammates. And the Flyers believe in their environment, he'll be a different player compared to what he showed in Buffalo. And then Keith Yandel is going to quarterback the power play. He's their top unit guy right now. He's not, he's older. He's not the same player he probably was when he was younger, but he can still produce offensively. And he's not going to hurt you defensively. He's not going to bulldoze you over in the defensive zone, but he'll be solid. He'll be smart. And it'll help you on the power play. So those three guys showed all their strengths in the preseason. They still have one more game to play, but so far I've seen good things from all three. And the back end has to be better if the Flyers are going to be better.
Yeah, and sticking with that, obviously, these additions are obviously the main talk, and like you said, Chuck Fletcher held up his end of the bargain. But comparing the personnel within this really tough division, how do you think this Flyers team is going to stack up in terms of playing the Capitals, playing the Penguins, teams like that with this new personnel being added?
Yeah, I think it's a playoff team on paper. I think it certainly is. The Flyers, of course, will have to prove that, but the division is not going to be any slouch. There's still the big dogs in like the Capitals and Penguins with their big names, the Hurricanes. The division is deep, and you even have some teams like the Rangers who are obviously kind of up and coming. The Devils believe that they're better with Dougie Hamilton and some of the youth they have. So the division is going to be tough, but I think the Flyers just need to worry about themselves. That's the biggest thing. They made a number of changes. As long as they're better and worrying about themselves, I think they'll be a playoff team. But they're still going to have to prove it. The division is deep. I think normalcy can also help the team too. I think it was weird for them playing these teams 8 times last season, not traveling, not bonding. I think playing teams out west, playing teams up in Canada, I think all of that should be good for the Flyers. But the division will be very good, very stiff. But again, I think it's more focusing on the Flyers and not worrying about the teams around them.
Yeah, the big thing coming into this season is Carter Hart, and obviously he had a down year last year, but he's coming into this year. A lot of people are expecting big things out of him, hopefully to rebound into what he looked like in 2020. When you seen him in preseason and in training camp, how does he look? And do you think he's kind of coming back to his former self and, set himself up for a good year?
Yeah, he's looked good. And again, the preseason is the preseason. I don't want to overreact to what transpires in 2-3 games in preseason setting against obviously rosters that may not be NHL rosters. But he has looked good. I think he's refreshed. I think he feels rejuvenated. I think last year was really just hell for him. It was a weird year with less practice time, and the pandemic created a lot of challenges. He's a kid. He's 22 years old. He's 23 now, but last year he was 22. And he's still a kid in many ways. And I think he was living on his own in a pandemic, not being able to go out, hang out with teammates as much. And I think that became a mental beast for him, especially once he started struggling and then he got hurt at the end of the year. So I think normalcy will be awfully important for Carter Hart. I do think he worked really hard in the offseason, tweaked some things in his game. I think he highlighted a lot of things he needs to work on. And I do expect a bounce back year. I don't think anyone's asking Carter Hart to be a Vezina finalist or be up for the Vezina. Just be back to who he was in 2019-20, the year prior to that. Just be the guy for the Flyers. Doesn't have to be perfect, but I think he'll be better. He looks better. He looks stronger. I think he's forgetting the past and he's looking forward. And the defensive changes, I think, should really help Carter Hart too. It's a symbiotic relationship between goalie and the skaters in front of them. The goalies didn't help the skaters last year, and the skaters didn't help the goalies. Kind of created a perfect storm. I think this year the changes should help Carter Hart, and I think Carter Hart should help the new guys as well.
Yeah, and sticking on those young guys, Jordan. I mean, we talked a lot about the defense and obviously just talking about Carter Hart, but moving to the offense and looking at the two subtractions in this offseason, you have Voracek and Patrick leave. You bring in Cam Atkinson, and then you obviously have a guy who is probably going to be the future goal scorer of this team, and Joel Farabee. How big of a role do you think he's going to play this year? And do you potentially see him being the 30 goal scorer?
I do. I think 30 goals should be the goal for him. He hit 20 last year, obviously in a shortened year. I've always envisioned Joel Farabee being a 30 goal type of scorer. He's a playmaker too. He can make plays, but he really has all the elements of a goal scorer. His shot's really impressive. He has a deceptive shot. He knows how to beat goalies in close from far away. So yes, he has all the elements, and he's a real driven kid too. He reminds me of Claude Giroux and Sean Couturier, like a guy that wants to be a long-time Flyer, wants to have success in Philadelphia. He just really reminds me of a Flyer. So I think he has all the ingredients. I don't worry about him getting in his head or feeling the pressure after signing, obviously, the extension that he got. I think, if anything, it's going to push him. Something that really stuck out to me was in his preseason debut up at TD Garden, he scored 2 goals against the Bruins. The very next day, with travel, obviously they're going from Boston back home to to the Philly area. The very next day, he's the first guy on the ice in Voorhees, New Jersey for practice. He's out there almost a half hour before the practice, like honestly, probably about 20, 25 minutes before. So it tells you a lot about the kid. He works hard, wants to be better, and I think he's going to play a huge role. And I also think having some more guys, more depth at the forward position could help him too. I think he'll be able to. He's a guy that can really scale the lineup, play in different roles. He can play on your first unit power play. He can play on your first line, or he can also play on your second unit, play on your third line, and he's not going to be a different player. He's going to be the same guy. So I think the sky's the limit for Joel Farabee, and I think the organization is excited about him. I think the fan base is excited about him, and I think for all the right reasons.
Claude Giroux's entering his final year of his contract. He's the longest tenure Flyers captain for I don't know how many years, but it's been forever. Going into his last year, what do you think the future holds for him? What kind of role do you think he has with this team, and what kind of season do you see come from him?
Yeah, it's a massive storyline. He's the longest tenured active athlete in Philadelphia. He made his NHL debut with the Flyers before the Phillies won the 2008 World Series. It just shows you how long he's been here. Really a cornerstone of the franchise. He's going to be an all-time great Flyer when things are all said and done. He's climbing the ladder among franchise icons. But one thing's really missing from his legacy here, and that's winning. Had some decent runs when he was younger, but as the captain, the Flyers haven't really gone on a real playoff run. And I don't think that's because of Claude Giroux. I think there's been a long-standing debate of had they surrounded him with enough talent during his prime years. He is not the Flyers' best player anymore, and that's okay. But he's still awfully important. He's still awfully effective. And this really is a crossroads season for him. I think the Flyers' success will really dictate if he's a Flyer next year. If the team shows they're right there and they're taking a big step and they can contend the next season, I think the Flyers will want Claude Giroux back, and I think Claude Giroux will want to be back. But if this season goes awry and it's 2 straight years of disappointing hockey, maybe Claude Giroux realizes, hey, there's another chapter to my career elsewhere. Maybe the Flyers realize, hey, it's just not happening with this exact group, and we need to shift gears. So I think the success of the Flyers this year, and whether it's a rebound year or not, will weigh heavily on if Claude Giroux is a Flyer after this season. And that's a huge storyline because he really is an all-time great Flyer. He's the longest tenured active athlete in this city, as I said. And if he goes elsewhere, that's pretty hard to believe. But I think the success of the Flyers will ultimately dictate that.
Yeah, and just, again, Jordan, thank you so much for coming on, and we appreciate your time. But, speaking about those potential transitions, and obviously he's getting to the back nine of his career, and some of these older guys are as well. But, speaking of this new wave, we see a lot of these young guys in the NHL and getting called up. The Flyers have a rich farm system in terms of prospects. What are some guys that could potentially see some time on the Flyers this year, you think? Such as a Cam York or Tyson Forster. And have you seen those guys in camp, and how they looked, to you so far?
Yeah, Tyson Forster is a guy I think fans should really be excited about. He's not here yet. He's still got some time to go, but he's climbing faster than I thought. I've seen him now since, I saw him in 2020 camp, but that was a real short camp. It was about 6 on ice days. He was here and then gone.
Mm-hmm.
But I've seen him now from the start of development camp to rookie camp and now in main training camp. He was by far their best prospect in the development and rookie camps, and wasn't even close. Like, every day you saw him scoring a goal, showing off his shot. He has an NHL shot now, and he's really developed the other facets of his game, his skating, his strength and conditioning. When he was drafted, he honestly looked like a 14-year-old to me. Now he looks like a 19-year-old. He actually looks his age, and that just shows you how much he's developed his body. He's still growing into his body. He's still a kid, but he works hard. He has fun when he plays, and his shot is an NHL shot. He's opened my eyes a ton. He played 3 preseason games with the Flyers before being sent down. He didn't score. He didn't really do anything. He kind of blended in. That's fine. He's a 19-year-old. I think it's good that he got a taste, but that kid is climbing. I think he's going to have a really good year with Lehigh Valley, and if he's playing really well down there, I wouldn't rule out maybe seeing him if the Flyers are hit hard by injuries and maybe they need a little jolt of an offense from him. On the back end, I would keep an eye on Cam York and Igor Zamula. 2 of the top defensive prospects. They look as advertised. Cam York, real fun puck mover, puts up points, can quarterback your power play. I think the Flyers are one more injury away on their back end from him making their lineup and staying for a little while. With Samuel Morin being hurt, I think he's their 7th guy in an organizational depth chart standpoint. He's not going to be their 7th guy to start the season. I think that's going to be Nick Seeler. But in terms of depth chart and where he is, if the Flyers need a 7th defenseman for an expanded period of time, Cam York, I think, is going to be their guy. And Igor Zamula is a really, really good prospect to keep an eye on. He got hurt during camp, which is a shame, but lanky, real long, disruptive reach, and a real fluid skater. Undrafted kid that they found, and he has really developed into a top prospect. So if I had to pick 3, those would be my 3: Tyson Forster, Cam York, and Igor Zamula. I think they're guys, all 3 guys that maybe you could see at some point this season.
All right, you can follow Jordan on Twitter at JHallNBCS. You can also read his articles on NBC Sports Philadelphia covering the Flyers. Jordan, thank you so much, and hopefully we can do it again during the season.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it, guys. Really appreciate you having me on.